Hi, this is Ms. Mendoza. Today we're going to learn how to solve equations with variables on both sides. So this was something that you guys have seen and saw in 8th grade. Maybe you didn't learn it 100%, but this is something that we saw from 8th grade. So we're going to put together what we did with solving equation, a two-step equation, and we're going to solve equations with variables on both sides. So we're going to have an extra step to it. Okay, so, oops, I misspelled type. All right, so the first thing we need to review and remember is that we're going to be using inverse operations. So inverse operations are operations that are opposite of each other. Remember, the goal is to get the variable by itself or to isolate the variable. So we talked about this with the two-step equation. The other thing that you need to remember is whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other side. So that we're talking about the sides of the equal signs. Okay. So what you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other side of the equal sign. So you subtract on one side, you have to subtract on the other side. Okay. All right. So let's look at our steps. So the steps really break down to move, divide. And so I like to make it easy for you guys, and I like to give you a starting point. So I'm going to tell you that you're going to move the constant first using inverse operation. So our goal again is we want this x by itself on one side. So you want to move every number without a variable to one side first, and then the other numbers with the variable to the other side, and then the last step that we're going to combine them, and then the last step is to divide by the number in front of the variable, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to move the constant. A constant is a number without the variable. Okay, and I like to just move my constants to the right. You don't have to. If you get really good at this and you notice that it's easier if you move the constant to the left, that's fine. But if you're just starting off and you're like, I really don't understand it, start with your left side. So you're going to look at left. So here we're looking on the left side of the equal sign. We're going to look for the number without a variable. So that is 3. So I'm going to use inverse operation. So this 3 doesn't have an operation in front of it, but it's a positive number. So we have to do the zero pair like we did with the algebra tiles. So we always do the opposite. So if I have positive 3 on this side, that means I have to subtract 3 to both sides. And I have to put it underneath the other constant. It has to be with the like term, like we talked about at the beginning of this unit. It has to be with the like term. We cannot combine x's, letters with x's, and numbers without x's. You can't combine those, okay? So then this cancels out because of the zero pair. So 3 minus 3 is 0. So that one cancels out. And what are we left with? So on the left side, there it goes. On the left side, I am left with 7x. And then on the right side, I am left with 4x. And then 24 minus 3 is positive, so I put the plus sign, 21. Okay? So now I have to doing the same thing, but now I'm going to look at the right. So if you're starting on the left, moving right, then you have to, the next step, step 2, you're going to start on the right, moving left. So now I'm going to look at my variable. So I'm going to move variable with variable. So I want to move this variable with this variable. So in order to do that, we're going to use inverse operations. So if I have a 4x that's positive, I need to subtract 4x to both sides. So what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Okay? And what am I left with? Let's see. So it has to go underneath it. So this cancels. This little thing right here cancels. So 4x minus 4 is 0. So it's a 0 pair again, and that cancels out. So what are we left with then? So now we have to subtract our x's. So 7x minus 4x is 3x. So if I have 7 x's and I take away 4 x's from that, I am left with 3 x's. So make sure you write the x with it. And then on this side, we have 21. And all I did was bring this 21 down. And it's positive, so I just leave it like that. So now I have one more step, and that is to divide. And the reason that we're dividing is because we want to get x by itself, and we need to use inverse operation. So remember, when you have a number with the variable, that means multiplication. So to do the opposite operation, we have to divide. So I'm going to underline this because that's how it looks when we divide. We underline it. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I have to divide 3 on this side. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So that means that this number in front of my x is going to go away because we never write the 1 in front of the variable. Okay? And then on this side, we have 3. So I am left with x equals 21 divided by 3, which is 7. Okay? If I went too fast or you're like, oh my goodness, I don't get it, please go back and rewind this and watch it as many times as you need to in order to understand what we just did. We're going to do one more together. Okay? This one's a little bit different, well, not because the x is in front of it, but it's the same process. I'm going to start with my plus 3, right? Because that's the number without the variable. It's a constant. So I have plus 3. I need to do the inverse operation. So the opposite of plus is minus. So minus 3. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. I cannot write it underneath the 5x because they are not like terms. I have to write it underneath the other constant. So what happens here? Because the 3 minus 3 is a 0 pair, then that's going to cancel out. So I'm going to draw this line. So that's what they mean by canceling out. It means that it crosses each other out, and in this case, it's 0, so we just put a line through it. Okay? So what am I left with? On the left side, I have 4x equals. On the right side, I have 5x. But now I have to subtract, let's see, 7 minus 3, which is 4, so plus 4. Okay? If this was a like if it was a negative 4, then I would write minus 4. But because the 4 is positive, I write plus 4. All right, so now what do I have to do? So I move on to step 2. Move variable with variable. So I started on my left and I moved right. So now I have to look at my right side and move left. Okay? And I'm looking for the one with the variable, which is this 5x. 5x is positive. So in order for me to move it over, I have to use inverse operation. So that means I have to subtract 5x to both sides. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Okay? So what happens when I do that? 5x minus 5x, again, that is the 0 pair. That means that this is going to cancel. Okay? And so then I have to figure out what I'm left with. So 4x minus 5x. So 4 minus 5 is the same as negative 1. But we're in algebra now. You do not write a 1 in front of the variable. So we're just going to write negative x equals. And on the right side, we're left with the 4 that we found earlier. Okay? And it's positive, so I just leave it like that. So am I done? Let me look at my third step. My third step, divide. Get the x by itself using inverse operation. So I don't have to divide if the x is by itself, but in this case, the x is not by itself. I have a negative in front of it. So that means that I have to divide everything by whatever is in front of my x. And when I have a negative without a number in front of the x, that is the same as negative 1. So I have to divide both sides, because what we do to one side, we do to the other, by negative 1. Okay? So all that really does is it changes my sign, because 4 divided by negative 1 is the same as negative 4. And if you don't believe me, you can put it in the calculator, but that's the answer that you're going to get. All right, so I've done 2 examples with you. Make sure you understand how to do them. Go ahead and work the ones on the bottom out here by yourself. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. You can always message me, whatever you need, and then you're gonna move on into your independent practice. Okay? All right. I hope this helped you understand solving equations with variables on both sides better. Make sure you rewind it if you want to review it again, or if you have more questions, reach out to your teacher. Thank you.